So I'm Catherine Ambrose. I'm a senior home and lifestyle coach. My husband Randy and daughter Jillian, we're Ambrose team. We help people buy and sell their homes. And what I do now full-time is Empowered Senior, a nonprofit where we help seniors with all types of aging issues. We're a community resource. You can call us for anything that you might need. And then you see the professionals all around the room. They are here just for you. They're here to support community education and to be a resource to you. And they would love to answer questions afterwards or get their information and follow up with them. And if you meet someone or you see someone speak and you can't remember who they were, you can call us and we'll help you figure it out so you can get in touch. On your note-taking form today, the 3 panelists, their names are on there, so you can take a little bit down about them. Okay. Because of Empowered Senior, the seminars, this is our 5th year of seminars, we were honored to be asked to do a show for PBS. So we've had Empowering Seniors running on PBS television since 2019, and currently it's a weekly show, and it airs primetime Friday night, reruns Saturday, Sunday. It has another showing during the week, so it's on 3 times a week, which is super cool. And then Mindy East, if you'll stand up, the second show that we created out of this Empowered Senior event is Ageless Enthusiasm, our sister show. We thought that our adult kids could maybe use some clues in preparation for their aging journey, but also in how to support their aging loved ones. And so Ageless Enthusiasm really is designed to address boomers and Gen X and help them redefine life, health, and happiness. Okay, next slide. These are all of our education partners currently, and a lot of them are in this room. We could not do the TV show, the seminars, anything without their support, so we really hope that you keep them in mind. You can find their information on our website. And these are the television sponsors, American Senior Benefits. They've been with us since the very beginning on TV and at the seminars. Sedgwick Plaza, Blue Stem Communities. Is Blue Stem here today? I don't think I saw him. And Fleeson Gooing Law. And then our seminar sponsors, we have Morris Lang Law Firm. Blue Stem Communities sponsors both. Adult day centers with the Catholic Diocese. That is really incredible what they do. Humana, Providence, and Oxford Senior Living. All right, so this is what we do as Empowered Senior. We do in-home consults where we can come to anyone's home to visit with them about anything in their lives. And we talked a lot about what else we do, and then we do real estate and senior living options. If you know someone that's looking for senior living, we help them find it. So we help figure out what type of home might be appropriate and what all the options are, and then we take people to tour, personal tours to see what they might like. We help negotiate the leases and everything. Downsizers Club. Randy, did you bring the box of the Downsizers Club books? Okay, could you hold up one of the books? So Downsizers Club is a free workshop. At first we thought, if people write a check, maybe they'll be more serious, but I think that held a lot of people back. We were giving gift certificates in exchange for joining Downsizers Club. So now we're like, okay, no gift certificates. It is free. Those books, Randy, why don't you bring one up if you would? The books, if you'd like to be in Downsizers Club, I have a few that I can give today. You can have the book for free and start coming to Downsizers Club at the television station. It's the first Tuesday of every month from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. This is Brian Spear. He's on our board of directors. So it's a really awesome program. We have a lot of fun. And we have a lot of graduates. If you graduated from Empowered Senior, you made your move from downsizing, could you raise your hand or stand up? Thank you. And we just got a whole new group in, and we just started, so we'd love to have you join us. All right, so who's been coming here for years? We're in our 5th year. Okay. Who's brand new today? First time ever? Oh, welcome, welcome. And then we've had people that have joined us along the way. So let's test our knowledge a little bit. You can use your note-taking form. What All right, so first of all, low maintenance, you can purchase or buy. What are some low maintenance properties that you could maybe move into that are easier to take care of? Patio homes, apartments. There's a couple of co-ops in town where you can buy into. There's lofts. There's really interesting places that you can either buy or rent. And then there's senior living communities. What's a senior living community? It might be independent living, assisted living, skilled nursing, memory care. And then we talk about other options too for aging in place and what it means to go to temporary rehabilitation. Maybe after surgery, you go someplace first before you go back home. So we're going to talk about some of those things today. There's a lot to all of this, and when I first started learning about it, it was all kind of Greek to me. What about you? It's a lot to it. These are some examples of independent living, a patio home, and there's actual independent living in a senior living community. You can rent villas, and there's a lot of entertainment and things that you can do in some of these places. So if you have any questions about that, we can talk about that during the Q&A, or you can reach out to me anytime. But let's bring up our featured guest, Dr. Susan Giovanni. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It is a great honor to be in front of you. Any opportunity I have to educate and assist, especially the older population, I am all for it. So, Catherine, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it. I hope this is a valuable use of your time. I am a doctor of osteopathy. I graduated a long time ago, believe it or not. I have been in the Wichita community practicing medicine for 30 years now. I started out and am board certified in family medicine and did obstetrics for a few years in there, so I got to deliver babies. So I still run across people that I've delivered over in the earlier years. And then I practiced four walls medicine, and now I do mostly geriatric medicine, and I do hospice work. So I feel like I've done the whole circle of life thing. Started from the beginning, and now I'm working my way towards the end. So I've had a lot of experience. I currently work for a group, which I want to tell you about because there are a couple of groups in Wichita that can do this. And so whether you choose ours or some other group at some point, I want you to know that it is available. I work for Mobile Medical. We're an organization. Oh, by the way, sorry about the voice. I'm like 3 weeks past bronchitis and laryngitis, and it just doesn't seem to want to go away. So I'll use my mom voice if I can. Mobile Medical, we do in-home primary care. So anything that you would go to your primary care doctor for, have your routine visits, get your mammogram ordered if you're still doing those, get your EKG, your follow-up lab work, just have a once-over or a skin check. Anything you'd go to a primary care doctor for, Mobile Medical comes to you to do that for you. We work closely with a couple of different agencies who can come in and draw blood, take that off and get it processed, can come in and do an EKG, can come in and do x-rays. We, of course, do not do CT scans or MRIs in the home. That's bigger equipment. We refer out for those sorts of things. We work with all of the specialists in town, all right? So we are just like a primary care doctor in four walls, but when it gets to the point where you or your loved one has a lot more difficulty getting out to get to those appointments, having somebody come to you is of great value. So I just want you to know that those services are available in Wichita, and you can start asking around as you age or your loved ones age and need more assistance. We have mostly nurse practitioners. I supervise all of them, so you always get me in the end. And then I also work my other hat. I have two badges, two hats. I also work with Serene Hospice, who is a sister company to Mobile Medical. So one of the things we firmly believe is people should die on their own terms. We are all going to die. Everybody knows that, right? That's not a shock to anybody in the room. I talk very freely about it because I know that it's coming. It's coming for all of us. Some of us we can predict, and others it's sudden, and we have no way of knowing that it's coming. But if it's not sudden and you can plan for it, then I strongly encourage you to plan for it. So that's a really good segue into my specific topic, and what I would title this topic is choices. You have choices, right? And you can exercise those choices as long as you have a sound mind. To determine that you do not have a sound mind, at least 2 physicians have to see you and evaluate you and determine that you're no longer capable of making choices for yourself. So I want to assure you that even if I think your choices are ridiculous or stupid, should I go there, I still have to honor those. And your clinicians need to honor those choices as long as you are of sound mind. Saying you are not of sound mind is, we can't do that just because we disagree with your choice, right? I might have a different opinion about where you should live or what medication you should take or who you should see or not see, whether you should drive or not drive, et cetera, and so forth. There are strict guidelines and standards for how that is determined. So as we talk about other things like having a durable power of attorney, we need to clarify some of that for you. So I will get to that as well. But again, I'm going back to the circle of life. When you were babies, how much of a choice did you have? Very little to none. Like, you didn't choose what you wore, you didn't choose what you ate, you could kind of choose when you went to sleep and when you got up. You know, if you were vocal enough, you could rattle somebody's chain to get you up, right? You didn't get to choose where you went or who you spent your time with, right? But as you aged and you got more mobile, you could walk, you got to go to different places. You got to choose some of those things, but you still had somebody watching over you, right? Hopefully, you had a good parent or caregiver of some sort to keep you out of danger, right? That's the hope for parents, is that we just keep our children from killing themselves or setting something on fire, right? Keeping us from having to call the police or fire department or first responders. Sometimes parenting boils down to that. And then, as they get older and get to school, we lose all control as parents, right? Now they're all over the place, and we have no idea what's happening most of the day, and they come home to us, and we think, oh my gosh, whose child is this, and what happened to you, right? And then they grow up some more, and they start making better choices, because now mom and dad aren't so stupid anymore. We've actually come back around, and we do have a brain, and we might have some good advice for them. Okay, so what happens as we get older? The same thing starts to happen in reverse, right? Our physical body changes, just like our physical body changes from when we were born to when we're toddlers to teenagers to grown adults, right? So when we hit adulthood, do you know that your lungs mature until the age of 1, and then your lungs start to deteriorate, okay? So you have the best lung function you're ever going to have at 1 year of age. So everything you're exposed to after that, smoking, chemicals, if you worked on a farm and you worked around chemicals, or you worked in a plant that had chemicals that weren't regulated at that time, if you're not wearing a ventilator, allergens in the air, our lungs have to deal with that, and they get very unhappy at times, and then you start to lose lung function over time, right? Our heart is a muscle. We know that if you work muscle enough, that it will bulk up and be strong and healthy and do what we want it to do. But if you overwork it, what happens? It tears, it gets angry, and it doesn't work so well. The heart is a muscle. So over time, all of the things we force our heart to do, all of the chemicals we expose it to, including alcohol and miscellaneous drugs, and then letting our cholesterol get too high, clogging up our arteries that supply lots of nutrients and oxygen to our heart muscle, the heart muscle starts to deteriorate and not do its job correctly. And there are consequences to that. Some of this, all of this is normal aging process influenced by the environment that we live in and the choices that we've made. But by the time we get to this end of the spectrum of life, All of our organs, including our brain, which I always describe as Grand Central Station. This brain is the computer that controls all other things. If this brain doesn't function correctly, then I don't speak right, I don't walk right, my kidneys don't function correctly, my thyroid goes completely out of whack, my gut shuts down, a whole bunch of things happen, right? So it's important, and I want to stress this, you all came in here of your own volition, which means you are all healthy enough to ambulate. Whether you use an assistive device, like a cane or a walker or a wheelchair, you're able to get out of your place of residence and come here. So you're reasonably healthy. If you want to stay that way, you have to make choices that keep you reasonably healthy. And then, when you're not reasonably healthy, you have to make other choices. I know a lot of people who are in living situations that are very dangerous for them. Again, the group of clinicians that I work with, we come to where you live. And I don't say home because we go to apartments and condos, houses. We go to independent living facilities. We go to assisted living and nursing home facilities. We go, if you live in a long-term hotel, we've seen patients in long-term hotel. If we can have an address, we can see, and we make arrangements, we can see you. So we come to you. So you can imagine the places we've been to just in this city alone. And we go all the way up from McPherson to Winfield and Sterling, Kansas, past El Dorado. So we've seen a lot of people. Everybody wants to stay in the place that they've created as their own. I understand that. If you wait long enough, you're not going to be the one making the choice about where you live the last of your days. That's the bottom line. Because even if you haven't assigned a power of attorney, somebody's going to come in and say, this is not safe for you. You're not capable of making this choice. We are going to move you. Is there anybody in this room that prefers somebody to make those kinds of choices for you? If you're brave enough to raise your hand, God bless you. You are a serious minority. Okay? I paid for my own college education, my own med school education, and I went to school with people who were in the armed forces, which is a great way to pay for an education. But you know why I didn't go into the armed forces? I bet you can guess. I really don't like people telling me what to do 24/7. I think I would have been really bad at it. So I chose to save them and me that grief and just do it myself. Okay, so I want to encourage you this morning to think hard and long and have a plan. What's the saying? What is the saying? If you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. It absolutely is true. If you are dead set that you are not leaving the premises that you currently live in, then you've got to have a plan to stay there safely. Because at some point, somebody's going to kick up their heels and be really upset with you. Do all of you have somebody that loves you? Hoping the answer is yes, right? I have an elderly father. He lived in a bi-level. I'm like, what the heck? We lived in a ranch house my whole life. And then when I went off to school, they moved into this bi-level because it had a 6-car garage and a pool in the back. So Dad got the 6-car garage and Mom got the pool. And both of them got a crappy house to age in. I mean, there were stairs everywhere, and you couldn't be on one floor and have everything that you needed, period. And I'm like, what in the heck? So when my mom passed away a couple of years ago, guess what I had to do? I had to pull out that my dad thinks he's capable of making choices, which technically he is. I'm just fairly annoyed with him right now. God bless his soul. I had to pull out the daughter tears, and I had to say, I love you, Dad, and you cannot stay in this house because I cannot sleep at night imagining you walking by this set of stairs and losing your balance and falling down them and no one finding you for hours. I pulled out the tears, and he said, okay. And we moved him to a 0-entry condo with the garage so he could still drive and, everything on the same level, which was safer for him. And now we're having to make other choices because now health-wise, it's not really the best place for him, but he does not want to move. So I am not saying these things to be mean, and I am not without empathy for you. You've already heard I don't like people telling me what to do. But I am saying to you, if you feel that strongly about where you live right now, then you've got to plan for what's coming next. Because every moment of every day, we are all aging. We are all losing function. We are all going to have more and more trouble doing the things for ourselves that we need to do. So if you want to make those choices, do them now when you're in your right mind, and you can do that, okay? There are a couple of forms that can help you make these choices. There are some of them over here. I brought examples of them because I want you to see them in case you've never seen them. I hope to God you've seen them and someone's talked with you about them. And I want to tell you that I already have my forms filled out, and I'm a little bit younger than most of you in the room, but I have them filled out because I want to choose be on my own terms. So I have already documented if something happens to me, how long you can leave me on a ventilator, whether you can put a feeding tube in me or not, whether you can do ICU and for how long, all of those things I've already documented, right? So you can do that right now. And honest to God, sorry for the attorneys in the room, but you don't have to have a really expensive 20-page document to have that done. You absolutely can, and they give awesome, great advice. I just came back from my attorney, hour and a half took us, okay? You can do a one-pager that you can take to your bank and have it notarized. And or the T-POP in the back can have a physician's signature and then becomes an order. The do not resuscitate is actually an order. You can fill it out, but it has to have a physician's signature for it to be an actual order. So while we're there, I want to talk about do not resuscitate. Lots of people struggle with this term, do not resuscitate. And I want to explain it to you so you understand it. Do not resuscitate does not mean do not respond to me. Does not mean if I have pneumonia, don't treat me. If I have a bladder infection, don't treat me. If I have a skin issue, don't look at it and don't do anything to it. That is absolutely incorrect and not what it means. What it means is if I drop dead right now, you're actually going to do CPR and call 911 because I don't have a DNR. I have a full resuscitation order. But if you have a do not resuscitate order and you drop dead right now and I come and I check your pulse and you have none, and I check your breathing and you have none, then I say, hold off, people. No chest compressions. Don't call 911 just yet. Let's find out who the loved ones are. If you do not have a do not resuscitate order and you are, I'm going to say at least 80 plus, or you're younger than that and you have osteoporosis or bone thinning, or you've had previous surgery on your chest, so if you've had open heart surgery, if you're frail, if you've had if you've had compression fractures in your spine, if I were to lay you on the floor and do chest compressions on you, I will break ribs. I will puncture a lung. You will have to have a chest tube to recover that lung for a short time, but you will have to have a chest tube. You will end up on a ventilator. So if any of you watch football, you saw the kid who got smacked in the chest just at the right moment in time and dropped dead on the field, right? Okay, anybody know how old he is? 24 years old. Does anybody know how long he was in the hospital? I think he was in the hospital about 5 days. Is that right? Somewhere in there, 5 to 7 days. Okay? This is an NFL, works out every day, gets paid to be in good shape, and gets the crap beat out of him all the time. He drops dead, they do CPR, bring him back, he's in the hospital for 5 days, and he was on oxygen for some portion of that. Now, what do you think is going to happen to you if that happens? I mean, really, let's not be delusional. We are not NFL players, none of us in this room. I mean, you may have been, lots of things. I know all of you have a story and a history, but we are not in our prime. We are not in tip-top shape, okay? There are consequences for doing CPR. It can be effective. In general, statistically speaking, if you drop dead on the street and somebody starts CPR, your chances of surviving that are slim to none. Under 5% of people actually survive that. Now, if you have an AED, which is sticky pads on the chest that can shock you within 5 minutes, then your chances go up maybe 15%, maybe a little bit higher than that, okay? So there are ways for that to improve, but the bottom line is, think hard about that. Is that really something you want to happen? And just because you have DNR does not mean anybody should be ignoring you. So advocate for your own care and make sure that people are doing what they need to do for you, but protect yourself at the same time. Living will is a slightly different document, and it gives a little bit more information about how you feel about being fed. So I want to talk about that a little bit. So there are certain conditions. For instance, if you have a stroke and you have difficulty swallowing, which happens a lot, there's about a 2-week window in there where nutrition may help you because your gut is still not terribly unhappy. So a feeding tube at that point might be helpful, but once you put a feeding tube in, trying to get somebody to take a feeding tube out except me, because, you know, if you can talk and I can communicate with you, I'll take a feeding tube out any day. But getting it out is a lot harder, okay? Here's the problem. We think you put a feeding tube and you fix me, right? But the gut is all connected. So you put a feeding tube in and you start to put nutrition into that feeding tube. It has to go the right direction, first of all. If it comes back up, which it can go into your lungs and make you super sick. And that's really hard to recover from, again. The other thing is, as we age, and if you've already had a major insult to the brain, which, what did I say it was? Grand Central Station, boss of all things, then the gut's not going to operate well either. And so there does come a point in time where artificial nutrition and hydration, so me feeding and watering you through a tube, is really more detrimental for you than it is helpful. Is this all very sad? Sorry. But just remember, this is the circle of life, and you get to choose how that happens on some level, right? I mean, who knows the end of our days? God and God alone. I'm not the boss at the end of your day. But I can tell you, having done hospice work for 7 or 8 years now, that I can make you reasonably comfortable and still very functional and not have all of those things happening, okay? So there are teams of people who are specifically designed to keep you from being miserable, even though your choices are not to do what the cardiologist says, or the nephrologist says, or what the pulmonologist says. So that's heart, kidney, and lung doctors. And by the way, dialysis in our age group, for the most part, is an life-sustaining measure, just like putting you on a ventilator. Okay. Once your kidneys have shut down to the extent that you need dialysis, and every nephrologist will look at the lab and look at you and your urine output and tell you, you're a candidate for dialysis, you should start dialysis. Go, whoa, Bessie, hold up, okay? What does that mean? That means that you're going to be hooked up to a machine for 3 to 4 hours at least 3 times a week. And that may work for a while. It absolutely, you know people who've been on dialysis for years, right? So if you're 40 and you're on dialysis, that's a different ballgame. But if you're 70 plus and you're on dialysis, this is to keep you alive. You get to choose. I'm okay with you choosing dialysis. I'm okay with you choosing a tube feeding. I'm okay with you choosing the ventilator. But I just want you to understand that you don't have to choose any of those things. But every specialist is going to tell you this is what you need to do. You need to do dialysis. I need to ventilate you because your respiratory system is really unhappy. If they cannot tell you that there's a reasonable chance that they can get you off of those things, then you need to be aware of that and make the choice with that understanding. At some point, ventilators fail to ventilate and do their job. Dialysis fails to do its job, and your body will be flooded with toxins, and you will die anyway. Our bodies are just designed to fail. We were never meant to be here for eternity. I mean, after Adam and Eve screwed it all up, we just got the raw end of the stick, right? It just is what it is. We're going to be done at some point. So, again, I've said it a jillion times already, I'm just going to say it again. Choose. Make your choices. Get your understanding of what's really happening and choose. Okay, so my last plug that I want to make is for, I was at a meeting yesterday for Lead Wichita, and it's community leaders, all different sorts and types, and had a lot of great conversation. And one of the authors was there of this book, Ed O'Malley, and he spoke. The team, Lead Wichita, their primary goal is to flood Wichita and the surrounding area with leaders so that the tough problems can get solved. And interestingly enough, I didn't really think about y'all at first, but one of their board members, or whoever she is, I don't know if they call them staff or board, one of her only jobs and her team of people, only jobs, is to reach out to different people groups to give information to and to draw into this idea of building leaders. And she mentioned seniors. And it caught my attention because, of course, I was doing this morning. So I was like, okay, why is she saying that? And here's the deal, and I absolutely agree with her. If you're not dead, you can still lead. Okay? Because you're still moving around, you're still you're still doing something, and somebody's watching. Okay? Remember, leadership is not a title. It is not a position. You do not have to be a CEO. You do not have to be a president of anything. You don't have to be in charge of anybody but yourself, and you can still lead. So, we had some people who have already downsized. And so one of the things I was talking with Catherine about earlier is like, you know what? These downsizers have already made the hard choices and done the hard things and are living the consequences of that, and hopefully they were good choices for them. But if they weren't, then that's okay too. This is the way they lead. They have the same conversations with you about what they did, and they help you get a different perspective on that, right? You still have children, you still have grandchildren, you still have neighbors, you still have people that you see at the grocery store, for heaven's sake, right? So leading is about showing somebody a way to solve a problem. That's what leading is. It's very simple and very straightforward. We make it way too complicated, and anyone can lead. I did have a really smart guy one time tell me, if you're going this direction, you might want to look around. If nobody's following, you're not leading, you're just taking a walk. I'm like, well, thanks a lot. Okay, Dale, thank you so much for that. So, I mean, yeah, if you're doing something and you don't see anybody doing it too, then maybe you're not leading, maybe you're just doing something. But you could influence other people, right? Every time you go to an activity and you say, hey, Sally, why don't you come with me? It'll be so much fun. You've just led. And you and Sally are going to have a blast regardless because you already decided you were going to have a blast. And even if it was a stupid event, then you're just going to laugh about how stupid it was, right? I mean, at least that's me and my girlfriends. We laugh about everything. So I just want you to think hard about leadership. And if you do read, this is a really great book. When Everyone Leads, the toughest challenges get seen and solved. You're in a different place in life, and you've seen a lot of things. You've seen a lot of things that I haven't seen. So you could be vital in solving some problem that I don't even know exists because you're not dead yet. So please don't act like you're dead if you're not dead. But please remember, you will die sometime, and you need to be prepared for that. How's that for a good summary line? Okay, well, that is me. If you need or want information, Mobile Medical and Serene are both over there. I do have some copies of the forms that I referenced, the simpler forms, but you do have options for attorneys that are very good at what they do. And then, of course, you have Catherine and all of her amazing resources. When she told me this topic, I was like, Catherine, I don't really know anything about like senior co-communities, and holy crap. I mean, it took me forever to figure out what AL meant versus IL. So, and LTC, what that stood for. So I will absolutely defer to Catherine on those particular resources. If you have questions or thoughts about what you want to do or where you want to live and you don't really know what to do next, this would be the resource for that, right? So we have social workers that work with our agencies, and I always just defer to them because they know what's available. the people, the important people in the room on the outside of the room. Okay, our social workers keep their ear to the rail on all of that.
Okay, thank you very much. Hey, hang on to that mic.
Okay.
Does anybody have a question right off the get-go for Dr. Giovanni? Okay.
I've been in a situation where I didn't know whether I should revive someone or not, because it's not always obvious if they're a do not resuscitate. What kind of trouble do I get into if I go ahead and resuscitate them and they were a DNR?
If you are an innocent bystander and the DNR paperwork is not plastered to their chest, then you're okay. If you're me, it's a whole different ballgame. Which, however, thank you for that question, it does bring up the issue that I did want to mention. If you do have legal paperwork, it does not belong in your safe or your safety deposit box. Will do you absolutely no good there, and you won't be able to get to it when you need it. Now, you can keep the original there if you want, but you've got to have a copy, and it has to be very clear and evident. So what we do is encourage a plastic folder with magnets on your refrigerator. EMS in Wichita, if it's red, I will tell you, EMS in Wichita is used to checking the refrigerator. So you should have on your refrigerator in that folder your current, please be current, your current medication list, your durable power of attorney, your do not or full resuscitate orders, and your living will. If you had bonus points for you, I mean, like you get an extra long trip. Bonus points for you would be contact numbers. So loved ones that are going to care when you don't answer the phone tomorrow because you just got hauled off to the emergency room and admitted to Wesley Hospital. Okay?
Okay, so that's a pearl. That's something to write down on your notes, the red folder on your fridge. Excellent. Did that answer your question? Okay.
Repeat the question? Oh, what I just said. Okay. Red folder with magnets on your refrigerator. You want to know what's in it? Your current medication list. Your do not resuscitate or your full resuscitation orders. Because, you don't want somebody to look at you and go, you're old, I'm not resuscitating you, if you want to be resuscitated. Your durable power of attorney paperwork. And in this case, I do want to clarify, there's always clarifications. There are two power of attorneys. The only one that goes in the red folder is your health care choice. Your financial choice is a whole different ballgame and only happens in other circumstances, so EMS doesn't care about that. So durable power of attorney. Living will. So if you have a separate paper that says you want a feeding tube or don't want a feeding tube or you want this ventilator for a certain length of time.
Excellent.
Were those all of them?
I think so.
Oh, and then contact list.
Oh, that was for a bonus.
That was bonus points or contact list.
Okay, here's another question.
Hi, can you talk about the durable power of attorney for healthcare and when someone has a durable power of attorney but they're still able to make decisions, and then at what point that power of attorney starts making decisions for them?
Right, okay, I will, and then the attorney in the room can just interrupt me and correct me if I'm not being accurate. So for healthcare choices, durable power of attorney can be assigned at any point in time. Again, I have a durable power of attorney assigned. They are aware that if I am not capable of speaking for myself, they will do it for me. So durable power of attorney is a legal document that does say that an individual or individuals, and I kind of discourage you. I know some people really like to make two people. It's like a committee. But yeah, you know how committees go, don't you? Like, not a lot gets done. So have one that you really trust and you talk to all the time, and then have a backup in case that one, the first one's either not available or they're incapacitated or they're gone before you, right? Have backups. But committees just don't get much done. Anyway, so you have that. That person's job, I want to address that first. When DPOA kicks in, their job, their only job is to speak for you what you cannot speak for yourself. Okay, it's not to make their choices for you. It's they should know you well enough that they would know, oh, Sally would hate that. We are not doing that. Or Sally really said to me, she really wanted that, and so we've got to do it. We have to honor her. It happens when people have dementia and now they're not cognitively intact enough to have judgment and reason and insight. So they could still be talking, they could still be hearing and talking, but they do not have judgment and insight and ability to make decisions. Or it could happen, for instance, their brain disease, degenerative brain diseases, so stroke or Parkinson's. There are a whole bunch of other things. Traumatic brain injuries, sometimes DPOAs will kick in for that. Okay, so the way we do it in medicine is we do not take our directives from the DPOA unless I'm talking to you and you're not talking. I cannot tell what the heck you want for whatever reason. You just can't speak, or you're not capable of putting in 4 words together intelligently. Something's happened. You're on a ventilator, whatever. Then I go to the DPOA. Most of the time it's clearly evident and we don't have a lot of grief, so that whole technically speaking by law, 2 physicians are supposed to determine that you're not capable of making your own choice. That could be the ER doc, and then that could be me. That could be the that could be the hospitalist and the surgeon. It can be your cardiologist or your neurologist and me, your primary care. You know, it can be any combination thereof. But most of the time I will say it's usually clearly obvious that somebody can't, and nobody argues about it, and then DPOA is who we speak to and receive directives from.
Very good. And Jason Bach, the attorney in the room, do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, it's all great information. There's, to the question as to whether or not they are, when they're effective, for financial powers of attorney, I often discuss with clients whether or not to make them immediately effective or what we call springing, where they only spring into effect when the person has a disability. And healthcare power of attorneys almost universally are drafted, at least I always do, and I think most attorneys do, as springing powers. And so the document itself will discuss that this is only effective upon my disability, and then a well-drafted power of attorney will then define what disability is. And oftentimes it's certification by 2 physicians, one being a primary care physician or attending physician. But that can be modified somewhat. I do know some law firms do immediate healthcare powers of attorney, which doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, because as I explain to my clients, if you can make the decisions, then you're the one who's going to make the decision. It's not somebody sitting next to you holding a legal paper. So.
Okay, good. He didn't
Thank
he didn't
you.
scold me too badly.
Jason Bach with Fleece and Gooing. So he's here at this table after the seminar. Okay.
One up here.
I'm coming with the mic.
I'm a little confused. I thought a dual power of attorney, a DNR was only in effect when you're diagnosed with a terminal disease by 2 doctors. In other words, if I just am in my house and I pass out for some reason, and I got that red folder, and 2 doctors hadn't told me I have a terminal disease, and they don't resuscitate me, that's not right.
That's correct. If you want CPR, you do not want a DNR pulled out, because they will not do it. And there are legal ways to get around that, but that's really tough. That's why I have a full resuscitation order. But when I get older and you're going to be breaking ribs and all that garbage, I'm going to change that, because I'm ready to die when I'm ready to die. But if you're not that way, remember, if you fall to the floor, you're already dead. You have no pulse and you're not breathing, you are technically dead. I can declare you dead right then and there. It's really a matter of what happens next, and that's why the paperwork is there. If you want me to do chest compressions, give you injectable medications, and shock you to bring your heart back, and you want me to breathe for you, then you do not have DNR on the books, then you have full resuscitation orders in effect. And some people will revoke. It's always revocable. You can revoke it, but you can't revoke it when you're dead on the floor, obviously. But you have to remember, I think your concern is really based on us sort of ignoring you or not doing something for you that you think you want. It just sounds to me like you're really not ready for a DNR, truthfully. I mean, again, I'm sure the attorney can draft you up a document that says there has to be some other stipulation before you do not resuscitate me, but we're talking in the field. EMS is only going to read DNR or full code. That's all they're going to really read. So if you want to be coded, don't do the DNR. Have everything else. You could have the living will that says, if you've coded and now you've put me on a ventilator, then I want a trial of 2 weeks. Okay, so COVID changed all of this. It used to be way simpler, but COVID jacked all of this up, right? Because everybody knows somebody that got so sick, they ended up in the ICU on a ventilator, and they were on it for 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and they finally came off of it, and now they're walking and talking, and I'm like, oh my God, really? Because that usually does not happen, okay? That was is a bizarre virus doing very bizarre things. In this age group, I'm not going to ask you how old you are, because I haven't even told you how old I am, but in this age group, if you end up on a ventilator, again, your chances of coming off that ventilator being fully cognizant without any neurologic deficit is at least below 50%. So it's really just how you want to play the odds. My parents, my dad is, you better do everything under the sun to keep me here, or I will haunt you from my grave. My mom, on the other hand, was, I know where I'm going to go when I die, and I don't want any of that stuff. You better not do any of that to me, or I'll haunt you from the grave. And I was like, oh my God, I hope I don't get this mixed up when it really matters. Wait, was that mom or was that dad? So bottom line is, I'm making light of it just because I know it's a difficult topic, but I wouldn't have a DNR if I were you. If you're worried about that, it's not time for it. It's all right.
Okay. All right, well, let's bring up our other two panelists, and we're going to have time for a lot more questions. And if you wouldn't mind taking a seat here and hanging out with us, that would be awesome. So we have Brian Spear from Angels Care Home Health and Amir Rashad with Home Instead. So we'll have you gentlemen. Brian, I'm going to give this to you. You can turn it on. You guys can pass this back and forth. If you'll each introduce yourselves and add some input to this discussion, that would be great. Okay. All right, Brian, is it on? Okay, good.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so.
And right up to your lips and loud so they can hear.
Just introduce me, okay. So my name is Brian Spear. I'm with Angels Care Home Health. I've been in the senior care industry for about a decade now, taking care of all of you wonderful people here in the room. I started off in private duty in-home care, and I'm now doing home health. I'm also on the board of directors of Empowered Seniors.
And I am Amir Rashid with Home Instead. I've been in the senior industry for about 2 years, and I love it. It's just amazing to make sure that you guys are all taken care of.
Okay, so our main goal with Empowered Senior is that we stay empowered to stay in control of our own lives, that we get to make our own decisions, and we design the future for ourselves exactly the way we want it. Like you said, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So what we're all about is education and equipping and empowering, so everything is planned out so that someday there isn't somebody making decisions that you might not have chosen for yourself, that you've thought this out ahead of time. And so we're talking about senior living options for people that aren't ready yet, because we hear a lot of times people will say, well, I'm going to live in this house forever. And sometimes that's just not the right home, especially if that's maybe the home that you raised your children in and the bedrooms are upstairs and you're having to go down. That doesn't make sense for just about any mature adult. Let's say if you have a surgery or something happen, there might come a point where it doesn't make sense to be in a home where you have to go up and down stairs to get to your bedroom and your closet and your main bathroom. And that's why zero entry housing is available to make things safer and easier. And sometimes people will say, well, I know I'm going to do that. I'm just not ready yet. Most of the time when people say that, the danger is that they wait till it's too late. And if you hear someone saying, I'm not ready yet, it might be that it is time. It's just, we're just not there yet in our minds. And so, Brian, what do you see? What are some signs that you know of that might clue people in that it might be time to really think about making a senior living choice that's different than what they have right now?
Absolutely. I would tell you that if you've had multiple hospital or ER visits due to falls or due to other complications of disease processes, it might be time to start thinking about what is my living situation. If you're starting to use any medical equipment, walkers, wheelchairs, that sort of thing, a lot of these older homes, the doorways are not set up for this. And so we have to go through, and we've done safety assessments in the homes where we've had to tell people, if you want to stay here, you have to widen this doorway, you have to take out this carpet, you have to do all these things. And sometimes that's $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 worth of work to your home. And then, you know what, when somebody buys your home later, they're going to want to change it all back. So it's lost money. So you got to be very, very careful about what it is that you're doing, and pay attention to what's your body telling you.
And so a lot of people, the goal is to age in place, whether it's their current home or another home that might make more sense. And some people have maybe adult children that they're caring for, maybe special needs, or they have reasons why they can't go into traditional senior living, and that's why there's in-home care and home health. So tell us the difference between in-home care and home health.
Sure. When you're thinking home health, most people, this is all followed by your doctor. Dr. Giovanni, if she was your primary care physician, could go ahead and sign orders for my nursing team to come in, or another home health company will do physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech, if you might need some speech therapy. So it's all on the clinical side. In-home care is what we would, some people call it custodial care. These are people that would come in your home, and that's what Amir does, and I'll have him speak to it, but they'll come into your home and do things like cooking and cleaning and just kind of being there as a companion to help you if you're having bouts of anxiety or loneliness or a little bit of depression, right? If you've got a loved one that's been struggling getting out of the home because they're just so overwhelmed with everything going on, these people can come into the home, be there to help make sure that they're getting that shower a few days a week, that sort of thing.
Okay, great segue for Amir. If you'll introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Yeah, so we do the non-medical part as
The
Brian-
non-medical part, yep.
The non-medical part, as Brian mentioned. So we come in and we clean the houses, we cook, we meal prep, we run errands, transportation if you need it, just kind of like day-to-day basic need, I would say. We also kind of help a lot of our clients with personal care. It gets more difficult as we mature in age, like to get in the shower, wash our hair, wash our back. We could do that for shaving. That's very important. But yeah, so doing all that personal care we do, and we work very well actually with both of them to get our clients to stay home as long as possible.
Okay, so way to stay home as long as possible. Okay, so let's get into discussion with the panel. Think about questions that you have, and the other professionals in the room, think about things that you can add to this discussion as well.
So my comment on that is, you've already heard Brian say that home health does require a physician's order. Any physician can write that order. There have to be specific diagnoses and then specific cares that are directed. Again, that is a clinical decision-making process that we call that shared decision-making process that hopefully you're talking with your physician about. The personal cares that Amir was talking about, that does not require a physician's order. Those are services that you or your loved ones can set up any day of the week, any day of the year. Okay?
Okay. So in-home care, you can start doing on your own, or you could help a loved one acquire that. I've heard maybe a good rule of thumb might be have at least 4 hours a day, because by the time the caregiver gets there and gets settled in, gets started doing something, and then you have to think about what it takes to get ready to leave, that you might be kind of fooling yourself if you arrange for your mom to have maybe 2 hours of care, that really isn't enough. Is that true?
Yeah, we deal with a lot of clients. They start with our minimums and they enjoy it because they get their laundry done. They cook for the whole week in these 4 hours, or they go take him to doctor's appointments if they're able to go to the doctor's appointments, or even just doing stuff you enjoy doing, like arts and crafts, taking you to hang out with friends, because as we mature as well, we stop driving and we're not able to. With Home Instead, we take care of a lot of clients that have dementia and Alzheimer that cannot really be left alone. So we're there to support them through being with them and doing activities just to keep them cognitively there in the long run too, with the help with our beautiful panel over here. Yeah.
Okay. And so it's a team that works together.
Yeah.
And home health or in-home care can help coordinate all of these things with all the different people involved. Mm-hmm. Oh, great. Great. Okay. Does insurance cover any of these things?
So with home care, there is companies that take insurance. I know with Home Instead, we take a private pay, or if you have long-term care insurance.
Okay.
So that would not be your standard Medicare plan. That would be a separate policy that you had paid for long-term care.
Okay. So Medicare does not cover in-home care. Can Medicare, your regular insurance, cover home health services where you have a medical person coming to your home to provide service?
Yes, because it's clinical, this goes underneath your traditional Medicare.
So a first step going through aging might be I'm at home and I'm having services at home, then independent. What about assisted living? What are the telltale signs that someone might be ready for assisted living, and what does that mean?
So assisted living has a few more staff around and around more frequently. So you have a little better supervision. Typically, what you would have is an individual room of your own and your own bathroom. So you have like an apartment, but it's connected with this nursing staff. There are different services that you can receive. Some of those are included with your contract, and so each contract is a little bit different. There are other services that you might have to pay for. So if you're still capable of managing your own medications and you want to do that, or you have a loved one that comes in once a week and fills your pill box for you, then you don't need to pay the assisted living nursing staff to do that. You simply live in your apartment. But then you have common spaces. So you would have somebody doing your cooking and your cleaning and your laundry. You can eat in your room with your little kitchen area, or you can go into a dining area and eat with your friends. They often then will also have activities available. So it's a more all-inclusive community establishment that's a little bit easier access.
Okay.
But it is not the same as long-term care. So independent living is like your own apartment, condo. Okay. No nursing staff related to that. Sometimes they are in a common community and sometimes they're in separate building. Assisted living has your own space, but then lots of common areas and nursing staff for assistance if you need it. In both of those areas, you can have home health services. You can also pay for personal care services in both those locations. Long-term care is the next step. Long-term care, getting from assisted living to long-term care is a little tricky because nobody ever really wants to make that change. And we medical personnel feel like you probably should make that change before you're ready for that change. That's obviously pertinent to our topic here. But long-term care is 24-hour nursing care. You still have your own space. You have your own room if you want to pay for an individual room, which lots of places now have more individual rooms, and your own bathroom. But you have nursing staff. They manage your medications for you. You have aides that then help you with your personal care. If you qualify for and need other services like physical therapy, occupational therapy, or speech therapy, then the physician in charge could order that, and you could certainly have those services come to you even in the long-term care community.
And So from assisted living to long-term care, which are both medical products. Before that, we're just talking about residential. Once you go to assisted living, it's residential and a medical product combined. So when you go from one-person assist to two-person assist, tell us what that means and how that relates to the options.
So if you can no longer get yourself out of your chair and over to your bathroom, however you do that, you could still be in a wheelchair, but you would have to be able to get from your chair to the wheelchair, from your wheelchair to the toilet and back. If you can do that independently, then you can still be in independent living or assisted living. Once you need assistance for that, one person and two-person assist, again, is a little subjective. And then we have standby assist versus hands-on assist with a gait belt. So it gets a little funny in here, but the bottom line is the more people you need to get you from point A to point B or to give your cares, the higher level care you need and the closer you are to long-term care needs. So if somebody has to put, we call that a gait belt, it's a woven belt here, and it's simply for safety and security. So if one of Brian's team is helping you get to the toilet, you do not want them grabbing your bra or ripping your shirt or giving you a serious wedgie with your pants. They use the gait belt to make sure that you do not fall. You still have to be able to either pivot, which means you can get up and turn and sit, or you have to be able to ambulate, but they've got a hand on you to make sure that you don't teeter, totter, and fall.
Okay. All right, well, let's open up some questions.
On the mobile services, do you have a number of physicians who are on staff and PAs, or are you the person in charge? The only.
So in the state of Kansas, we have 2 overseeing physicians, and we have, at this time, 11 nurse practitioners. All of our clients, patients, have a nurse practitioner assigned to them who sees you routinely. And they have varying years of experience, from 10 to 2 years of nurse practitioner experience. In the state of Kansas now, because of the law changes in July of last year, 2022, our nurse practitioners can do just about everything that I can do. They cannot certify you for home health or hospice. I still have to do that. They cannot sign your death certificate. I still get to do that. But other than that, they can write home health orders, and they can write all medication prescriptions. They're recognized as full clinicians, and then they have my oversight. And I see patients periodically.
Very good. And so sometimes when you make senior living choices about where you want to live, you might think about, I want continuum of care. I want to know that if something happens to me, I move across the street, or there's services available right here. How else would you explain continuum of care?
Well, there's a small difference here of continuum and continuity of care as well. And I would always tell you, continuum of care, knowing that we can maneuver around a residential setting, whether you're going from independent into an assisted living and then into a long-term care setting or whatever that looks like, that's important that you know where you're going to go if certain criteria are met. I would also tell you, though, the continuity of care, understanding that your care team is not just your primary care physician or not just your home health. The nice thing with working with the in-home care type of services, home health, in-home care, and a nurse practitioner group like Mobile Medical, is that when we get going, my nursing team is talking with Dr. Giovanni's team all day long, right? The other nice thing, too, is when you have that nurse practitioner coming into your home, guess what? They're in your space. And I don't want to steal any thunder. Amy's very, very good at explaining this service much better than I am. But they're in your space. They're in your home. And they spend time with you, right? How many times do we go to our primary care physician, you see the PA for 6 minutes, you see the doctor for 2 minutes, and the whole time they're staring at a screen. They're not actually conversing with you and understanding what's going on. Mm-hmm. So understand that you guys have that choice and you have that power to not just choose where you live, but also how are you being taken care of and what is your team going to consist of.
I also want to mention that you can actually go from assisted living to a family dwelling. You can get pulled from long-term care and go to a daughter or a son's home we saw a boatload of that happening during COVID when everybody got into lockdown, and we saw a residual of that. So the census or number of clients choosing an assisted living or a long-term care facility was down for quite a while, and it was really because families said, well, heck, you know, if we're not going to be able to see them, we're keeping them home. So I do want you to know that you could go from independent living to assisted living to long-term care, and that if you're close to the end of life and family wants you to be home, I know family in particular who brought their mother home, and for the last 4 weeks of her life, they just rotated people and had extra services paid for and had hospice come in, and the loved one got to be at home with their loved ones, their family, when they got to the end of their life. So that's a really good place for me to plug. I work for Serene Hospice, so of course I would love for you to have our services, but there are plenty of hospice services around. So we do not have to fight over patients. Hospice services are a benefit paid for by Medicare. They are carved out, which means you don't pay a copay, there's no extras for you. Hospice covers the medications related to the disease process that we are treating and all symptoms. So you may have depression and anxiety, but if you have cancer, we know that the depression and anxiety is all going to get worse, so hospice covers all of those medications. They are at no charge to you as long as you keep your Medicare policy up to date. If you need a bed in your home, wherever you're living, your place of residence, if you need a side table, if you need a bedside commode, if you need a walker or a wheelchair, if you need a grabber, if you need continence products, all of those are covered benefits under any hospice. Hospice teams must, by law, consist of certain members. One has to be an overseeing physician, a nurse case manager. Generally, that is an RN. Sometimes it is an LPN. An aide, so somebody to come in and give personal cares. And they can also do that, by the way, in long-term care facilities. So I have one long-term care facility right now that has norovirus going around, so everybody's got diarrhea out the wazoo. And I said, call all of your hospices, because we have like 7 or 8 people on hospice, and you tell them we have norovirus and we need you in here to help. You know, so if that aide was only coming once a week, they're now coming 3 times a week because we need all hands on deck, right? So you have an aide, a social worker, and social workers are not to pull your elderly loved one out of a scenario or to steal your children away from you. People in different walks of life have different feelings about social workers. Our hospice social workers do amazing things. They help you navigate systems like nobody's business. They're super good at what they do. All the paperwork, if you've got somebody that needs Family Medical Leave Act paperwork completed, they complete it for me and just have me sign it. It's so nice. Our social worker moves furniture. Oh my God, she arranged transportation. It's ridiculous. Then we have chaplain for social, spiritual, emotional support. And then we have pharmacy. So Serene itself works closely with Dan Duran Pharmacy. But you can use any pharmacy you want when you're on any hospice service. And then you can choose which doctor, besides your hospice doctor, you can choose any other doctor that you want to be your attending. So if you have a favorite primary care doc, they can still do that job. So the hospice agency would call them for orders. And then they would only call me if we can't get a hold of your primary care doctor.
Excellent. And I really love at the beginning, too, that you mentioned that you can go from assisted living to independent. And we've talked about that in seminars before where someone went to assisted living for a time and then decided, I think I'm good, made a call and hired help to get moved into independent. So you always have options. Who has some questions for our panel?
While you're thinking of questions, I also want to statistically tell you that most people choose hospice services too way later in the game than we would prefer. Mm-hmm. Yes, again, by law, a physician has to certify that we believe that you have 6 months to live or less. We know that when people get on hospice services, and you get me at least, carving up your med list, people get better. They feel better, they function better, and they sometimes will live longer than we would anticipate. And if they live past that 6-month mark, then it's my job and the team's job to figure out if you still qualify for hospice services. Medicare has very strict guidelines, and we follow those guidelines. So you can graduate off of hospice services. Hospice is not a dirty word, just like dying is not a dirty word. Okay, hospice's job, I know it's got a bad rep on some levels. A good hospice team's job is to relieve suffering. It's the easiest way to explain it. You no longer have resources. You're not a heart transplant patient. Your heart is failing. We don't want you to suffer. You're going to be short of breath. You're going to have pain. You're going to have swelling. We help with those symptoms. That's our sole job. Relieve suffering.
And some people graduate off of hospice.
Absolutely.
We have a family member that's been on hospice 3 times, and now she's back to driving and living her life. And, you know, she's just been struggling with cancer and
She's
but-
used her 3 cat lives. How many more does she have left?
Yeah, so
6?
she's doing good, doing good. So anyway, and hospice is as much of a benefit to the loved ones as for the patient. Yeah, so. And we're talking too about having room in your home for helpers to maneuver and family members to maneuver. And so what are some tips that you have to make your home better equipped for you to be living in your home maybe when you are having some frailty issues or when you have helpers in your home or family in your home? What are some tips that you have to make that house reasonable? And then I'll start walking over to us. If you have questions, raise your hand and I'll start heading over to somebody. Okay, so Amir, if you want to address that.
So whenever we go to consults, usually those consults are free, and most of the time they need their services more than my service. But we do a house assessment with everybody that we meet, and we walk through the house and we see like, okay, well, there's a bunch of carpet, but yet you're using a walker, so it's a trip hazard. And we look at the shower, for example.
Like area rugs, like
Yeah,
tripping
area-
over
more-
rugs.
yeah,
So
thank you.
get rid of the rugs.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
And then we look in the bathroom like, okay, well, your tub is really high, but you can't really like get into the tub. Like you need more of a walk-in shower, or you need a shower chair, or equipments to help you, like grab bars. We recommend all these things for you, and that's also, you guys do those assessments as well too.
And-
But yeah, so those assessments are available. I know we all love to help, so we could come out and meet with you guys and see like what we could do to provide the best care for you at home.
So, and clear pathways, room to move around in the bathroom, maneuver in the bathroom, and minimizing personal stuff so that there's less things on the floor and just less things taking up space, that there's plenty of room in the hallways and doorways and everywhere else.
Right.
Okay, and we have a couple questions over here.
Could you address palliative care?
Great question.
All righty. Oh, sure. I'll take that one. Okay, so this is how I describe palliative care and hospice. 2 hands. Okay, both of them are to relieve suffering. Palliative care, you can still go to all your specialists. You're still getting your cancer treatment. You're still on your high-dollar respiratory medications. None of that changes. But you have symptoms that are not being well controlled. So palliative care comes in to assist the current physicians with the job of relieving those kinds of symptoms and that suffering. Hospice relieves suffering in patients who are no longer a candidate for or no longer choosing to do aggressive care. So you have renal failure, you've been on dialysis 3 times a week for 10 years, you're getting lightheaded and nauseous and sick for 2 days after dialysis, and by the time you go for the next one, you feel like worse than you did before, and you've decided, I don't want to do this anymore. Hospice can come in and prepare the family and you for what's going to happen and help relieve the symptoms of the nausea, vomiting, lightheadedness, and assist you with what's coming. So,
Okay.
both relieve suffering. One is with treatment, one is without treatment. You will see the palliative word used in a lot of places. There are not any true palliative programs in Wichita. There is a palliative team in St. Francis in the hospital itself who ends up doing some consult work, but then you get discharged, and so there's trouble there. So the way we have navigated that is Mobile Medical's clients are 65 years and older, and most of our clients are palliative appropriate. Okay, they have symptoms, and we are managing those. Our nurse practitioners call me, and that's my job. I'm the one that will pull out the big guns and say, this is what we're going to do to help with that. I'm the one who goes out to see you to say, okay, you're still in treatment, but this is the problem. Okay, this is what we can do to help you. Okay. So if you need palliative services, you can call Mobile Medical or Serene. We'll get you into the right place.
Oh, you don't?
There are other companies who do say they do palliative, and so go for that if you need it. The real trick is, can they get you what you need in a timely fashion, and can they work with the docs that you're working with? I've been in this medical community for 30 years. I'm the only Giovanni in the geographical area, so kind of everybody knows me.
Okay.
For better or worse.
Very good. Okay, and we have a comment here.
Going back to the first question, Catherine, is how do you know when you're ready? And I just want to remind people of a fellow last year who said, don't let an event do your planning for you.
Yep.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Don't let an event do your planning for you.
Amen.
A medical
I'm with
event. Okay. And so some of the downsizers in the room that have already moved, if you'd like to share why you did it or how it's going for you now, that might be helpful. Or if anybody has another question. And surveys are being passed around. We really depend on your surveys to give us feedback and good ideas for the future. So if you would fill out your surveys, we would really appreciate that. And are those going around now, Randy? They're out. Okay, so you already have your surveys. So if you would fill those out, and then you can just leave them on the table. Okay. Next month, we are going to have our biggest event since COVID. Before COVID, do you remember we didn't have tables in the room? There wasn't room, and we had chairs all lined up. I think that for safe driving, you want to get RSVP'd and let your friends know. Help us spread the word on this. We are going to put a lot of effort into bringing you comprehensive information and make it fun. And this will be a really great thing to come to. So please spread the word. And that reminds me, you were talking about leadership. And my mom, Barbara O'Connor, she moved here from Chicago to move to Wichita. And if you've been coming around, you know she's having a good time. Yesterday, we went to a fashion show. What else did you do yesterday, Mom? Anything else? Oh, so she went to a birthday party at Chicken Pickle. Goes dancing how many times a week?
4 or 5 times a week.
5 times a week she goes dancing. So if you want to know where to dance or where the parties are, stand up. This is my mom, Barbara. She knows where the fun is. Did you wear your badge? No. Oh, boy, I didn't wear my badge either, so it's okay. So we have name badges that we did not wear today. And what does your badge say?
Ambassador.
Senior Ambassador. So what we would like Mother to do is to help spread the word about Empowered Senior, maybe take some flyers around. You go to the Corvette Club, all kinds of trips with the Corvette, 2 different Corvette clubs. So did you do anything like that in your lifetime before moving back to Wichita?
No, I didn't.
And you just told me yesterday that there's so much to do here.
There is. It's amazing. I lived in Illinois. I lived in a suburb in Chicago for 33 years, and I thought there was plenty to do there, and there, of course, there is. But moving back to Wichita, I thought, I don't know, it's kind of a quiet town. Well, hardly. There is a lot to do here, a lot.
So if you're a go-go senior, do you remember we talked about go-go seniors? Go-go seniors are squeezing every ounce out of life, and so this is a go-go, and a lot of you are go-go seniors, and so make the most out of it. Who else would like to be a senior ambassador? If you would be interested in being a senior ambassador and working with me to help spread the word so that we can educate more people with this kind of incredible information and help us gear up for the topic next month, if you'd like to be a senior ambassador, Mom and I would like to take you out to lunch this month and discuss how we could work together to do that. So just let Randy, my husband back there, know, or Bretta, who's our event coordinator, let her know, or myself. Let's get you on the list and we'll take you to lunch and we'll brainstorm on how to do this. All right, can we get any pearls of wisdom? What did you learn today? Do you have an aha? Maybe it's not something you heard, but it's something that you thought of just being in this environment and hearing what you heard today. Any ahas? Because your ahas, your questions help everybody else. What did you write down on your piece of paper? Actions that you're going to take or some pearl that you heard. Hopefully everybody wrote down about the red folder, to have a magnet with a red folder on your fridge. Keep it simple so that EMS can see at a glance what your instructions are. Don't fill it with things that don't need to be in there.
Any red folder, or does it have to be something that came from some doctor's officers?
Any red folder, or does it have to come from a doctor's office?
No, it can be anything. I only say red, too, because they're used to red. There was a red folder program for a long time. I don't even know if it's going on.
And we might be able to bring some of those here because we've seen them before and they've been offered to us before. So, okay.
I liked being reminded that if I have a pulse and I'm still breathing, I can still lead. I like that.
Amen.
Yeah.
So if you have a pulse and you're still breathing, you can still lead. You can still be a leader. And that's really a gift that we have as we age, is wisdom. Because we can look at like the 20-year-olds in our families and they're trying to figure things out, but they lack all the wisdom that we have because life has kicked our tail a few times. And we have learned a lot along the way. And they need leadership.
Yes, they do.
And we can learn from them too.
Yes.
So, all right, how are we doing on time? I didn't wear a watch. Oh, 11:32. It's time to wrap. All right, let's do our drawing. Mindy Cook, would you come up here? Mindy Cook is donating the prize today. Bring your purple cup up here. Mindy with an I. Mindy Cook. So she's a travel agent that can help you with travel. And did we get all your cards, all your stamp cards? Okay. And we would love for you to come to Paris with us. Mindy East, would you stand too? Mindy East and I are hosting a trip to Paris where you can come to Paris for a couple days. I'll let you tell them. What are we doing?
We're going to go to Paris. We are going to Paris and Normandy in June of 2024 for the 80th anniversary of D-Day. So we will go out to Normandy, see the beaches, experience the cemeteries, all of that. I will be right over at that table. When it's over, come talk to me and I'll make sure you get some information about it. We'd love to have you come.
Because we've been talking about it for a little while, but now it's serious. Now it's time to find out and put deposits down and start planning to go.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so since it's your prize, I'll let somebody else draw. We'll let the doctor do it. Okay. Give it a little stir and then pull one out.
No, I'll be mad at you.
I'm used to it.
All right, what'd you get there?
Catherine Finch.
Catherine Finch, you're our winner today.
Winner, winner.
Woohoo! That's a real pretty cup there. All right, any last burning word before we wrap? We good? All right.
Thank you so much for your time.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you, because if you didn't come here, we wouldn't be able to attract people to come speak and educate. So when you show up, you're helping everybody else tap into good information. So we'll be around to answer questions. If we could have a photographer come up and take a picture of us by the flag, that would be great. And then we'll just go from there.